In the rolling hills of southern Ohio, where people left their doors unlocked and feared little more than bad weather, a new kind of predator emerged. He didn't rob, he didn't know his victims, he didn't leave a single clue. He simply waited. Over 4 years, 5 men were gunned down at random. No motive, no warning, no chance. This is the story of a sniper without a face. In the quiet hills of southern Ohio, people left their doors unlocked. They waved to strangers, trusted their neighbors, and feared little more than bad weather. Until one spring morning in 1989, when a jogger was killed by a single, silent bullet. No witnesses, no motive, no idea that the sniper was already looking for his next victim. Tuscarawas County, Ohio. A place where nothing big ever happened. The kind of place where you knew the name of your mailman, and probably where he went to church. That's the kind of world Donald Welling lived in. He was 35, a quiet man, worked long hours at the local paper mill, lived alone in a modest home, paid off with years of double shifts. No wife, no kids. But everyone who knew him said he was kind, dependable, the kind of man who never raised his voice. April 1st, 1989. The sun had barely risen. Donald laced up his sneakers and headed out like always. What he didn't know was that someone was already waiting. Hidden in the trees, a man lay still, a high-powered rifle aimed, finger on the trigger. One shot, straight through the heart. No sound, no struggle, just silence. Deputies found Donald lying face down near the roadside. His wallet was still in his pocket. No drag marks, no signs of a struggle. And strangely, no bullet casing, no footprints. It was like the killer had vanished into the woods. It wasn't random, one officer later said. It was precise, calculated, an execution. The case went cold within weeks. No leads, no suspects, just a man dead on a back road for no clear reason. But to seasoned investigators, something about it felt different. Too clean, too distant, too controlled. Years later, the FBI would call it detached predatory behavior, a psychological signature found in snipers and thrill killers. Men who don't kill for money or revenge, but for control. Once they start, they don't stop. Donald Welling never saw his killer, but someone out there had chosen him, and that someone was already hunting again. "You took a light from my life and left me in the dark," wrote Jean Paxton, mother of a murdered son. Her boy, Jamie, had been gunned down in cold blood by a serial killer. A man with no face, no name, and no reason. This is not just a story of unsolved murders. It's a story of a mother who refused to stay silent. November 10th, 1990. In Belmont County, Ohio, the peace was shattered again. Almost 2 years after the first killing, the roadside sniper returned. His victim, Jamie Paxton. He was 21, a quiet, kind young man who loved nature and bow hunting. No criminal record, no enemies, no reason to be targeted. But in serial killer documentaries, that's often the point. There is no reason, just opportunity. That morning, Jamie stepped into a field to scout for deer. He never made it back to his truck. 3 shots, fired from a high-powered rifle. One killer, one motive: compulsion. Jamie's death devastated his small town, but no one suffered more than his mother, Jean. And unlike most victims' families in true crime cases, she didn't fade into silence. She wrote. Week after week, Jean Paxton published open letters to a killer in her local newspaper, the Martins Ferry Times Leader. To the murderer of my son, Jamie. I can't hate you, but I can pray for you. You took something from me that you can never give back. You stole my child. Meanwhile, the FBI began to notice patterns. 2 victims, both shot in remote areas. No robbery, no suspects, no connection. Their behavioral science unit built a profile. A white male, late 30s to 40s, likely married, lives a normal life. But on weekends, he hunts, not for animals, but for strangers. They called it compulsion-based killing, common in cases like this one. Controlled, distant, emotionless. And then came the turning point in this real-life crime documentary. Nearly a year after Jamie's death, the newspaper received a letter, typed, anonymous, chilling. I am the murderer of Jamie Paxton. He was a complete stranger to me. I left my house that day knowing someone would die. I just didn't know who. He described the crime in exact detail, what Jamie wore, where he walked, how he fell, and then ended with a line that made seasoned investigators go silent. I thought no more of shooting Paxton than shooting a bottle at the dump. This wasn't just a confession letter. It was a psychological map. A message from a man who didn't feel remorse, didn't seek money, didn't even care who he killed. Jean Paxton had reached him, and what he gave back was proof of something even darker. Jamie wasn't chosen, he was just available. The letter changed everything, not just for Jean Paxton, but for the FBI, who had quietly watched as the murders added up. No suspects, no motive, no pattern. Until now. A typed, anonymous confession arrived at the local paper. Cold, clinical, chilling. I left my house that day knowing someone would die. I just didn't know who. Suddenly, what looked like isolated tragedies now pointed to a serial killer. 3 confirmed victims: Donald Welling, the jogger, Jamie Paxton, the bow hunter, and Kevin Loring, a man out for a weekend hunt. Different towns, different weekends, no connection, except one. Each man was alone, outdoors, killed from a distance by a high-powered rifle. No casings, no footprints, no clues. The FBI brought in their behavioral science unit from Quantico. They weren't looking for relationships. They were looking for patterns. Agent Larry Ankrom led the profile team. His conclusion: a white male, late 30s to 40s, intelligent, likely married, but emotionally cold. A man with a history of animal cruelty, vandalism, maybe arson. Someone who kills not for revenge, but for power. They called it compulsion-based killing, a pattern seen in sniper cases and thrill seekers. The killer didn't know his victims. He simply needed to feel control over life and death. What made him even more dangerous was how far he moved. Different counties, different police departments. No one realized they were chasing the same man until the FBI stepped in and gave him a name: the roadside sniper. A ghost, unseen, unpredictable, and still out there. Then came the fourth victim. Claude Hawkins, a father of 4, stopped to fish after a night shift. He never made it home. 1 shot to the head, his gear untouched, his truck still parked by the lake. This time it happened on federal land, giving the FBI full authority. They expanded their search, dug into cold cases, hunting accidents, rural deaths, anything that looked like a distant kill. Still, no casings, no DNA, no mistakes. But the letter was something else. A slip. A killer who needed to be heard. The FBI believed he might write again, or show up, or return to a grave. So they waited. And then, someone did come forward. Not with a letter, but with a name. In August 1992, the Phantom finally had a name. For years, the roadside sniper had killed without warning. 5 men dead, no suspects, and not a single trace. Then a phone call changed everything. It came from Richard Fry, not a detective, just a man with a terrible suspicion. He told the FBI he had a high school friend who matched the killer's profile exactly. Quiet, intelligent, outdoorsy, and deeply disturbed. His name, Thomas Lee Dillon. Fry recalled how, years earlier, they used to shoot at road signs and stray animals. But Dillon took it further. He killed pets, started fires, and once joked, "Think I could kill someone and never get caught?" Fry had laughed it off, but after reading the FBI's profile, he picked up the phone. Dillon seemed ordinary. He worked as a draftsman, had a wife, paid his taxes. But under surveillance, a different picture emerged. Every weekend, he'd drive alone through remote back roads. No destination, no purpose. And always in the same vehicle, a bright red pickup truck. That detail matched an earlier report. 2 hunters had seen a man aim a rifle at them, then flee in a red truck. Now, the FBI had a match. They watched Dillon from the air, waiting. One weekend, he slowed near a lone female jogger, circled back twice. He stopped, got out. Agents held their breath. But Dillon was just shooting a stop sign, not a person. Still, it sent a chilling message. He was testing the urge, and it was still alive. Then came another clue. Agents reviewed footage from Jamie Paxton's grave on the anniversary of his death. Among the mourners stood a man, alone, silent, watching. It was Dillon, the same man who once wrote, "I thought no more of shooting Paxton than shooting a bottle at the dump." Now standing at the boy's grave, guilt, arrogance, or ritual? No one knew. But now the FBI had everything they needed. A face, a name, and soon, a plan. The FBI had a name, Thomas Dillon, but they didn't have the rifle. No DNA, no shell casings, just a profile and a gut feeling. So they set a trap. Dillon had violated his probation by owning firearms. That alone was enough for federal arrest. But agents wanted more, a confession. They rented a small room across from his usual convenience store and filled it with reminders. Maps of murder sites, victim photos, newspaper headlines, even surveillance stills of Dillon visiting Jamie Paxton's grave. It wasn't just a room, it was a mirror, and they wanted him to feel surrounded by the lives he had stolen. November 27, 92. Dillon stepped out of the store. "Tom, we'd like you to come with us." He paused, then said, "I want a lawyer." That was all they needed. He was arrested for illegal firearm possession. Agents searched his home, hoping for a diary or the weapon itself. They found nothing, just maps, scribbles, fragments. Back at the station, the agents laid out everything. Timelines matching his work, absences to murder dates. The confession letter. The graveyard surveillance. They didn't accuse, they didn't push. They just let it sit. Dillon stayed quiet, expressionless, staring at the wall. Then he smirked. "You guys really did your homework," he said. Still no confession, until they mentioned the death penalty. 5 capital murders, one agent said. "That's the chair." Dillon exhaled slowly. No fear, no resistance, just calculation. Then he said, "Let's talk." What followed was not a confession, it was a demonstration. He named all 5 victims, corrected details in the police reports, described distances, angles, bullet paths. Like a man reviewing target practice, there was no remorse, no anger, only fascination. He spoke not as a killer, but as a technician. In court, Dillon pled guilty in exchange for life in prison. No parole, no appeals, just silence. Jean Paxton was there. She had faced her son's killer. "I didn't get justice," she said, "but I got truth, and that will have to do." The roadside sniper was gone, but the scars he left remain, etched into the woods, the highways, and 5 families that never got to say goodbye.
You just said a moment ago you're unique. Do you like that? You're known now as the Ohio outdoorsman killer.
No, I didn't want this. I don't want this. You know, look what it's done to my family. Look what it's done to my family. Ruined everything.
Do you look at what it's done to the other families?
Yeah, I think about them. But, you know, it's too late now. What can I do now? Most of them hate my guts, you know, and what can you do? Call them up and apologize, they're just going to hang up on you, you know, what can you do? I'll talk to them personally. I told you that. I'll talk to them, one at a time.
What would you say to them?
If they want to know any answers, I'll tell them.
Mrs. Paxton would ask you why you shot her son.
Yeah, I'll tell her, you know. Tell her it's just out of control for probably the last 4 or 5 years, that's all. She said, Mrs. Paxton said, why didn't he go get help, meaning me? Because I didn't know, you know. It's not like you have a broken arm where you realize you're hurt, you know, just, that was so out of control I didn't realize it. I can't make it up to him. I have to live with it like I'm gonna do.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.